For the Dharma dialogue for today, I sent out this piece where I started with the Lotus Sutra, where the parable of the children playing in a house that's on fire, and the father did everything he could to get them to leave, but they were so engrossed in their games, that they wouldn't leave. And of course, the Buddha said this is, like most people in their lives, dwelling in the world of samsara. And he had to trick them. So he told them that outside the gate there was these carts that they'd always wanted. There was a goat-drawn cart and a deer-drawn cart and an ox-drawn cart, and they ought to come out and see it. And that enticed them to leave the burning house. And of course, in the parable, the interpretations of it, the different carts are different teachings of the Buddha. But then in the Lotus Sutra, it says that there was actually just one cart that was bedecked with jewels and so forth, for their practice. And so I thought of that as one of the themes that we've been trying to emphasize here, as the ecological crisis, the ecological emergency, and that our Earth is on fire, and what are we going to do about it? And as Buddhists, what are we going to do about it? And I just want to be sensitive, that some people have been activists, and some people are just becoming activists. I've been quasi-active in my life, but I haven't been a rabid activist. But this is a topic that I'm just more and more interested in, and trying to learn what other Buddhist groups are doing. But I want to draw an analogy here, because in our practice, if we're really serious about our practice, it means that our life isn't going to go on as usual. I saw that in myself, that the types of things that I did before I started practicing were no longer the things that I did after I started practicing. But there are all kinds of forces, that prevent us from really deeply engaging in our practice, but if we look at it, we just can't continue our life as usual if we really want to deepen our practice. And the same thing, with the ecological crisis that's going on. We just can't continue our life as usual if we want to do something about it. And we have to recognize, our own habit patterns and look at them. That is one of the most difficult things to let go of in our practice. I think the first thing that the Buddha says is the most difficult thing to get rid of is our attachment to self. But it was Hakun who said that it's our attachment to our habit-ridden consciousness, our habits, our habitual ways of behaving. And sometimes they're so ingrained that we don't even see them. And so our practice, no matter what form it takes, is always about stepping out of our comfort zone. And it's called a comfort zone for a reason, because we're comfortable there, And so if we step out of it, we're uncomfortable. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable. They want to be in that comfort zone. So how do we deal with our ingrained habits? Some of them, like I said, are so ingrained we don't even see them. And what I wanted to talk about today are upayas, skillful means. how do we find the skillful means to deal with not only the resistances in our own practice, but also our resistances, to dealing with this crisis, which is very palpable, very obvious. And of course, the first upaya is just to be mindful, is to be aware. I mean, no matter what stage of practice we're in, we can never stop being aware and mindful. Even the great master Tozen, when asked a question, he said, as to that, I always take heed, meaning I'm always aware, because it's so easy to backslide if we aren't attentive. So one of the I was looking to see the suggestions from other Buddhist leaders, and one of them is to use sacred ceremony. And we're doing that here. We had a service this morning, and particularly the last chant, the Shosai Miyokichi Jodarani, which supposedly is a dharani to prevent disasters, or prevent catastrophes. And when I asked my Shishin Roshi what it meant, and he said it doesn't make sense in Japanese either, the word. And it's a dharani is a magical incantation of sounds, in order to invoke something, So in a way, it's almost like shamanic, but those sounds are to prevent disasters, and then we dedicate the merits to those who are in need. And one of the things I want us to devote and to dedicate our merits to is the health of the planet, and to all of those who can help sustain it. And what Moe said this morning, I really appreciated those who have the power, to be mindful of how they use it, and those who don't have the power in order to build that up. And one of the ways to build that up is through community. We can't do it alone. Now, if we think that our meditation practice is about individual awakening, I think that that's kind of a narrow view, because as we appreciate the three treasures, one of them is the Sangha treasure, which is the community. And what does it mean? And that's why I said how how my life changed was I wanted to help be a part of the community, the Sangha, those who were of like minds, who were practicing together. And that community grows, it develops. So, in our practice, it's very important for us to be aware of the unity of all things. Not just intellectually, but to actually embody it in our practice. And when we do that, we see how everything we do affects everything else. And as a community, we can have more impact. But whatever we do should be informed by, our basic precepts of nonviolence and the morals which we learn in our precepts and in our practice, in the spiritual practice itself. Of course, this is nothing new, but a number of Buddhist leaders are pointing out that a lot of the problems that we have today have to do with the systems that we live in and the things that developed. And they specifically mentioned patriarchy and the colonial imperialism and capitalism, which lead us to believe that we have to struggle and survive as individuals, and that it's each individual person's fault if they don't make it. And it's set up that way. So if we can work together, we're more collaborative, mutually supportive, empathetic, and authentic, we can become more conscious together. And how to do that, is something that as a Sangha we have to decide. I believe that this kind of energy has to come from the Sangha. Although my Dharma brother, Bernie Glassman, had a vision, and he felt that everything was Zen practice, and particularly when we're helping others. And a number of people followed him to New York, and they set up a community there, and were practicing. And then he developed a bakery, as you know, which in the bakery was to hire people who were unhirable by other people. They didn't even question whether they had criminal records or what their backgrounds were. If they needed a job and they had a position for them, they'd bring them in, and then their fellow workers would be the ones that would decide whether these people fit in or not. And he had his community working there too, and people would complain, they didn't come there for that. But he was very adamant about it, and there's been a lot written about this, but that this is the practice that we do here. But I want whatever we do as a Sangha relating to the eco-crisis to come from the Sangha as well. So, and information, we've had a number of meetings where we gave out information about what's going on. That doesn't necessarily translate into behavioral change. Working together encourages each of us to find the strength and the resolve to transform, how we approach this life. And I don't think that they're separate, but I understand, that some of you might feel that you just want to put your attention, to meditation and not to activism. I don't know what form it's going to take here because I'm still exploring it myself. But I just wanted to bring up the topic so that we can discuss it.